Something special has happened with the Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, something genuinely game-changing. This was once a gloomy first-person shooter where your flashlight was your best friend and your only hope of seeing anything in the monster-infested apocalyptic underworld. But now, even in the early part of the game where it tells you to equip your torch because you would otherwise see nothing, has almost become an irrelevance. This Enhanced Edition with its totally ray-traced illumination system has brought light to Metro Exodus. This is Dave, one of PC Gamer's hardware humans, and I'm checking out the Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition to see how it performs against the old game, how well it runs on a range of different PC tech, and what settings you should tweak for maximum performance on your gaming rig. The original Metro Exodus is a damn good looking game, and 4A Games managed to squeeze some early Gen 1 ray-traced global illumination and ambient occlusion into the engine partway through development. But it and the early DLSS implementation haven't stood the test of time. So, what's changed with this one? Basically, the Enhanced Edition has removed all pre-baked and faked lighting from the game, instead adding in a host of new ray tracing based lighting effects and completely transforming the visuals. Looking back now, there's an artificial haze to the original game, and actually an artificial lack of illumination, like your eyes just plain refuse to adjust to the darkness. For anyone picking up the enhanced version as a free upgrade to the existing game, this is going to be the big question. How does the new version compare with the old version in terms of performance? Basically, am I going to need a fresh new GPU to cope with the pretties that 4A Games has jammed into Metro Exodus? If you don't have a graphics card capable of ray tracing, the answer sadly is a resounding yes. The Enhanced Edition has ray tracing as a minimum entry requirement from the off. Thankfully, considering new graphics cards are rare as non-mutated wildlife in the Caspian Sea right now, if you can run the game's first ray tracing at a decent lick, then the Enhanced Edition isn't going to give you a problem. In fact, you might well see some genuine performance improvements to go along with the shiny new effects. The bottom overall preset may be labelled high, but it actually includes a new ray tracing setting that delivers higher performance compared with the old game, and that's because it renders its ray traced illumination at 25% of the resolution of the game itself, which is a lower setting than the original game had in its own. Otherwise, you are looking at a comparable performance drop at the Ultra and Extreme settings in the game, though that does narrow as you move up the resolutions towards 4K. We tested our MSI RTX 3060 Ti and RTX 3080 gaming machines at all three performance presets, and all with Nvidia's deep learning super sampling disabled, so we could see what effect the pure ray trace workloads had on the two systems. As this is a DirectX 12 Ultimate game, however, we also get the dubious benefits of variable rate shading, for whatever that's worth. You can see, even with MSI's mighty RTX 3080 Gaming X Trio and AMD's Ryzen 9 5900X CPU doing the heavy lifting, the demands that full resolution ray tracing really puts on the system. It's only at 1080p where our $3,000 rig is able to shade over 60 FPS on average. Step that down to Ultra and our mid-range machine starts to be able to get a foothold on the performance mountain. With a 1440p result of 52 FPS, that's getting on for being eminently playable, especially if we start to twiddle the settings knobs. On high, with its 25% normal RT setting, the high-end PC is now able to get near 60 FPS at 4K, while the MSI RTX 3060 Ti in the mid-range rig is happily nailing 1440p. This should give you an idea of how an equivalent modern AMD graphics card, such as the Radeon RX 6700 XT or 6800 or 6800 XT, should perform. But Nvidia users don't really have to worry about this level of performance because they have something special that the Red Team still doesn't: DLSS. The original game employed DLSS 1.0 to give RTX gamers a bump on their frame rates, but as a first-gen implementation of the tech, it sometimes delivered a rather muddy, blurry image. DLSS 2.0, however, is a whole new game of balls. It even works at 1080p and now comes with 4 different presets as opposed to just on or off. The main takeaway of our testing is basically that regardless of whatever you do with the in-game settings, you absolutely have to enable DLSS if you're rocking an Nvidia GPU. Even at the least aggressive, most aesthetically pleasing end of the spectrum, with DLSS quality setting, you're still getting higher frame rates than the original version could offer, with far higher fidelity too. Use that as a jumping off point, and you can pick up anywhere from 20 to nearly 50 FPS higher performance with the different DLSS settings. Though if I'm honest, I'd probably steer clear of the ultra performance mode at the lower resolutions. You see, at 1080p you're rendering at such a low resolution, the AI upsampling doesn't really have as much data to work with, and you do get some noise in the most detailed areas of a scene, and shimmering around fine lines such as trees in the distance. At this sort of resolution, I'd be tempted not to go any further down than the balanced DLSS preset, and would absolutely suggest trying the top quality setting first, to see if you can deal with the frame rates that offers. That had us getting around 89 FPS on the MSI RTX 3060 Ti, and that was still looking good. Up at 4K, however, I'm impressed with how well even the most aggressive ultra performance DLSS setting looks. Running the game on ultra settings at 4K on an RTX 3060 Ti at over 70 FPS, that's a hell of an achievement. Hell, even hitting 59 FPS on the straight performance mode would be good enough for me. Suddenly this 4th tier Nvidia card is looking a lot like a 4K ray tracing GPU, and that's with some seriously good looking RT features in attendance. The extra low levels of DLSS do mean that the older RTX 20 series cards ought to perform well too, with even the RTX 2060 potentially capable of delivering playable frame rates thanks to Nvidia's special super sampling source. The actual settings screen for Metro Exodus has always been pretty lightweight. The only real additions to the game in the enhanced version are the extra levels of DLSS and the third normal ray tracing setting. You do also get 3 VRS options, which is off, 2x and 4x, as well as the new reflection setting. The former doesn't do a whole lot for either performance or visuals, as it's just a tier 1 iteration, and with the latter I've got a feeling that ray trace reflections aren't currently working on our updated build, even post-launch. The overall quality settings have 5 different options: low, medium, high, ultra, and extreme. The way 4A Games has this set out in its recommended specs listing equate to minimum and recommended for the low and medium settings, and for that you're looking at the RTX 2060 at the bottom. And the recommended option aims at either the RTX 2070, RTX 3060, or RX 6700 XT. These overall quality settings are a good starting point for straight performance, but the magic DLSS bullet can make a huge difference if you're on the green team. We were quite happily playing on Ultra at 4K with an RTX 3060 Ti in our mid-range rig with the performance DLSS setting. And 4A Games claims you need an RTX 3080 for 4K at 30 FPS otherwise. If you're rocking an Nvidia GPU, then absolutely the best setting to tweak to uncover extra frame rate performance should be those DLSS options. Even the top quality setting will deliver higher frame rates than the DLSS 1.0 implementation of the original game. And going for performance will make a huge difference to your overall frame rate without hugely impacting fidelity. The Ultra Performance mode gives the biggest increase, but if you're playing at 1080p then I'd suggest giving that a miss, as it really muddies the visuals. Personally, I don't think that's worth the sacrifice for such a good looking game as Metro Exodus is right now. If you're not getting the FPS numbers you deserve after playing with the DLSS settings, then your next port of call should be those ray tracing settings themselves. The new normal setting is your best bet for a low-end RTX 20 series card, as that renders the ray traced lighting effects at a much lower resolution than your standard game res, and as such will gift you a decent chunk of extra performance if you're struggling at either the high or ultra ray tracing settings. Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition improves on the original visuals on all counts. The impact the ray traced lighting has on the experience can be dramatic, especially in the darkest corners of the game. Despite the extra fidelity afforded by the new ray traced lighting system, the performance delta between the original game and the enhanced version remains remarkably small. Your system could run the first implementation of ray tracing in Metro Exodus, and you're not going to suffer in the face of the enhanced edition. Thanks for watching, and check out PCGamer.com for more in-depth hardware prodding and game analysis.